When a nation's leader falls from the sky, questions are inevitable. When eyewitness stories contradict each other, a cover-up is suspected. And when investigators close the case with unusual speed, suspicion is not just natural, it's necessary. This is the story of a crash that has haunted a nation for decades. To understand the mystery, we must first understand the man at its center. Ramon Magsaysay, the 7th president of the Philippines, was more than a politician. He was a phenomenon. Known as the Guy, he cultivated an image as a champion of the common person, opening the gates of the presidential palace to all. His presidency, which began in 1953, was a period of relative calm and reform, a bright spot in the turbulent post-war era. He had famously quelled the Hukbalahap communist insurgency, not just with force, but with a policy of all-out friendship and all-out force, offering land and a new life to rebels who surrendered. His immense popularity made him seem invincible. But as 1957 dawned, with a presidential election on the horizon, the political climate was charged. Magsaysay was a beloved figure, but in politics, popularity can also breed powerful enemies. Our timeline begins on March 16, 1957. President Magsaysay was in Cebu City, a bustling hub in the central Philippines. He had a full day, delivering speeches at 3 different universities. His charisma was on full display, connecting with students and citizens, reinforcing the bond that made him a political titan. As evening turned to night, his official duties were complete. It was time to return to Manila. His transport was a C-47 Skytrain, the military version of the iconic DC-3. This particular aircraft, operated by the Philippine Air Force and christened Mat Pinatubo, was a reliable workhorse of aviation, known for its ruggedness. On board with the president were 24 other individuals, a mix of cabinet secretaries, military aides, journalists, and close friends. The manifest was a who's who of the administration's inner circle. Shortly after 1 a.m. on March 17th, the C-47's twin engines roared to life. It lifted off from Cebu's Lahug Airport, climbing into the dark, moonless sky, banking north for the capital. The flight to Manila was routine, expected to take about 3 hours, but this flight would be tragically short. Just minutes after takeoff, radio contact with Mat Pinatubo was lost. An unsettling silence replaced the routine position reports expected from the presidential plane. As dawn broke, the aircraft was officially declared missing, triggering a massive search and rescue operation. The search focused on the sea and the rugged mountain ranges of Cebu. For hours, there was nothing. Then, in the mid-afternoon, a breakthrough. Local villagers from the foothills of Mount Manangal reported hearing a massive explosion overnight. They led search parties up the treacherous, heavily forested slopes. There, they found a scene of utter devastation. The wreckage of the C-47 was strewn across the mountainside, a testament to a violent high-speed impact. The plane had slammed directly into the unforgiving terrain. Of the 25 people on board, only one had survived. Nestor Mata, a journalist for the Philippine Herald. Pulled from the wreckage with severe burns, he was the sole witness to the final, terrifying moments. The nation's worst fears were confirmed. President Ramon Magsaysay, along with 24 others, was dead. The golden age of his presidency had come to an abrupt and fiery end. In the wake of the national tragedy, the demand for answers was immediate and overwhelming. 2 parallel investigations were launched, one by the Philippine Air Force and another by the Civil Aeronautics Administration, with assistance from U.S. Air Force experts from nearby Clark Air Base. Investigators descended on Mount Manangal to perform the grim task of examining the debris field. They meticulously documented the position of the wreckage, examined the engines, and looked for any clues that could explain why a perfectly functional aircraft, flown by an experienced crew, had met such a catastrophic fate. They reviewed the plane's maintenance logs, which showed no outstanding issues. They interviewed the ground crew who had serviced the plane in Cebu. They analyzed weather reports from the night of the crash. Within weeks, both investigative bodies reached a similar conclusion. The official reports were filed and the case was, for all intents and purposes, closed. The government announced its findings to a grieving public. The crash of Mat Pinatubo was a tragic accident. The cause was attributed to a combination of mechanical failure and human error, possibly exacerbated by the challenging nighttime conditions. For the authorities, the book was closed, but for many Filipinos, the story was just beginning. Let's examine the official explanation more closely. The primary culprit identified by investigators was a failure in the aircraft's electrical system. The C-47's right engine was equipped with a generator, and evidence suggested a drive shaft in this system likely failed. This would have caused a cascade of problems. The first effect would be a loss of power to the plane's instruments and lighting. Imagine the pilots flying in complete darkness over mountainous terrain, suddenly losing their primary navigation aids and their view of the instrument panel. This electrical failure theory posits that the crew became disoriented. Without reliable altitude and heading indicators, they were essentially flying blind. The weather, while not severe, was a contributing factor. The moonless night and scattered clouds would have eliminated any visual horizon, making it impossible to navigate by sight. The official scenario is that in the confusion following the power loss, the pilots inadvertently allowed the plane to descend until it impacted the mountain. It's a plausible sequence of events, one that combines a single point of mechanical failure with the immense challenge of flying at low altitude, at night, over unforgiving geography. It paints a picture of a tragic but explainable accident. But the tidy explanation of mechanical failure was immediately complicated by conflicting accounts from the ground. Several local residents in the vicinity of Mount Manungal claimed to have seen or heard something that night. Some reported seeing the plane flying at a low altitude, its lights on, just moments before the crash. Others spoke of hearing not one, but multiple explosions. These stories, repeated in newspapers, fueled the first wave of public doubt. If the plane's electrical system had failed, how could there have been lights? If it was a simple impact, why did some hear multiple booms? Investigators had to weigh these accounts. Eyewitness testimony is a notoriously difficult form of evidence. The crash happened after 1 a.m. in a remote, rural area. The witnesses were far from the crash site, viewing events from miles away, through the dark. The trauma and confusion of witnessing such an event can easily distort memory and perception. A single massive impact echoing through mountain valleys could sound like multiple explosions. A fire on the aircraft before impact could be mistaken for cabin lights. While investigators took these statements, they ultimately prioritized the physical evidence recovered from the wreckage, which they felt did not support the more dramatic eyewitness claims. The official report noted the inconsistencies, but concluded they were not sufficient to alter the finding of an accident. With the official explanation leaving so many unconvinced, the vacuum was quickly filled by rumor and speculation. The idea that Magsaysay, a powerful and transformative leader, could be brought down by a simple mechanical flaw seemed unbelievable to many. The theory of sabotage took root. Whispers turned into headlines, suggesting the crash was no accident, but a political assassination. Several theories emerged, each with its own supposed culprits and methods. One of the most persistent claims was that a time bomb had been planted on the aircraft before it departed Cebu. Proponents of this theory point to the eyewitness accounts of multiple explosions as proof. Another theory suggested that a device was hidden inside one of the president's personal items, perhaps a gift he received in Cebu, and loaded onto the plane. The political context of the time provided fertile ground for such conspiracies. Who would want Magsaysay dead? Some pointed to political rivals who stood to gain from his removal. Others implicated disgruntled factions within the military. Still others looked abroad, suggesting foreign intelligence agencies, perhaps even the CIA, had a hand in the plot, fearing Magsaysay's nationalist leanings. To prove sabotage, investigators would have needed specific evidence, residue from explosives, fragments of a timing device, or wiring that didn't belong on a C-47. Despite the swirling rumors, no such physical evidence was ever officially reported. The sabotage claims remained just that, claims without conclusive proof. So, what is the final verdict? Officially, the conclusion has never changed. Decades of reviews and historical analysis have failed to produce a smoking gun. No definitive, verifiable evidence has ever surfaced to prove that the crash of Mt. Pinatubo was an act of assassination. The accepted conclusion, supported by the physical evidence from the crash site, remains that President Ramon Magsaysay was killed in a tragic aviation accident. Yet, the verdict of history is often different from the verdict of a government report. The questions that arose in 1957 never truly went away. The speed of the initial investigation, the conflicting eyewitness reports, and the sheer magnitude of the loss created a permanent crack in the official narrative. For many Filipinos, the death of Magsaysay marked the end of an era of hope. His loss created a power vacuum and altered the course of the nation's history. The belief that he was taken by a malicious act, rather than by a random accident, is a way of grappling with that profound loss. The mystery endures because it speaks to a deep-seated distrust of official stories and a longing for a leader who was, to many, the best the nation ever had. The file may be closed, but in the court of public memory, the debate remains very much alive.